Hi, I'm Larry and welcome back to my studio. We're going to hopefully finish this project today. This I call the Writing Club Pots. And today most of our underpainting is done, so now we're going to start adding some of the detail to it. I wanted to start down here on the plant stand, and I've mixed up a color that starts with my burnt sienna. To that I've added some orange, a little touch of cad red light, and some white. Now the white will kind of make it a little duller, but I'm looking, up above here I've got my reference photo that if you wanted to follow along, if you go to my blog spot, you will find the link for the reference material and the drawing for this. But I just want to put this on. This is my number 6 flat sable brush, and I'm just going to come in and touch the edge, overlap a little bit. If this isn't perfect, don't worry about it. This is a really old plant stand. It's seen much better days. Probably been knocked over by a horse. Like I said, make up stories. I tell my students all the time to make up stories about what they're painting. So I'm just coming in. This is like the highlight color for the outside here. You don't need to put it on everything, but you do need to kind of suggest some of this light hitting parts of this. And this is kind of a rusty color. It could have been painted at some point in time, so there may be other colors on there. Don't try to make it exact. It'll look better if you don't. I'm just coming in, just throwing some of this lighter color in places. Now in the back here, this is in the shadow, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. I am going to pick up a little bit more burnt sienna and a little touch of alizarin crimson and add to that with the mud that's on my brush. I want just kind of a little bit richer color just for in the shadows back as it goes into the back here. Just touch it, wipe my brush out, pick up a little bit of ultramarine blue, mix down in that same color, and just touch it as it goes back. You can use that to kind of suggest back here maybe there's some reflected light, like we talked about last time, like we have reflected light on the pots. Maybe there's some reflected light back here. You can suggest that there are some more rails underneath here, because it does have to sit on something. It's not being, it's not being totally suspended by the rim up there. If you want to add a little bit of shadow right underneath there where it's going to touch, that's just my blue and my burnt sienna. It's going to be a little bit of shadow coming off here, and I can darken this. Shadows are important. We've talked about that before. Trying to stay out of the picture here. I'm just going to kind of scumble that in, just suggest shadows underneath here, get a little bit darker. Okay. And if you need to, like maybe you want to put a little bit more highlight or something on here, that's just your white with a little bit of orange in it. Just picking up a little bit of white and orange on my brush. And it doesn't even need to be like a pure color, because this, you know, maybe different paint color. But you can just touch it in places. Just suggest that there's a little bit more white. Maybe on the rim here, there's some paint that, you know, don't get carried away. It's so easy to get carried away. So I'm just going to leave that. You know, I may come back in and do some more work after I call this done, but that's me. I want to now focus up on the leaves and try to get this finished, so I'll be right back. Alright, now as you can see, I've done a little bit of work, nothing I hadn't shown you before. Just got a few more highlights in, and I've erased some of the chalk marks. I have left these chalk marks so I know where I'm going. Now these are just the stems for some of these plants, and there are stems over here that I'll be putting in. And you can use a flat sable brush. What you want to make sure is that it will come to a nice sharp edge like that. If it doesn't come to a sharp edge, you'll have problems. And I'll show you the other way that I usually use to make lines, bushes, you know, branches and things like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down, I'm going to pick up, I'm going to kind of go back into that same color that I was using down here, which is the burnt sienna that's got a little bit of the cad red in it. I'm going to add some more orange to it, a little more white. Want it a little bit darker, a little bit more towards the orange side, even maybe a touch of yellow into it. And when you do that, draw your brush through the paint on both sides so that you form a nice chiseled edge on your paintbrush there. And then you can come in and just use the very edge of this and just touch it in places. Remember to skip, because those leaves do go. Let's see if I can do this with keeping out of the way. You know, up here it's going to be a little more solid because there's not as many leaves. Probably going to end up in your way, but I don't have any control doing it that way. But just follow up, touch, skip, so that it looks like those branches go in and amongst the leaves. Overlap if you're doing it this way. I can come back in and put leaves. Just going down, reshaping my brush. Just, throw some in there. You don't need to follow them all the way up, because there may be some that you just see parts of. It's just looking to see how much of this you can actually see. There's also coming out the side here. There are some, I don't know if it's growing in this pot or in a pot behind it, but I kind of like it. There's some long leafy type things, maybe some flax plant or something back there that's growing out of there. I'm going to take my Hooker's green and I'm going to add just a touch of that color I was just using, that slightly orange color, and I'm going to start here, and I'm on the edge of the brush, and I'm just going to like pull up, kind of twist it, and then pull off. Now it wasn't as dark as I thought it was, so I'm going to do it again. This time I'm going to add some blue, the ultramarine blue, into that color. That will make it a little bit darker, because I want it to show up against this light part. So I'll leave the light that I have down in the dark area, and I'm just going to kind of pull up, and then I'm going to twist my brush and then twist it off. Come up again with another one and just twist them. I'm rolling the brush in my hand. Maybe another one coming out from behind, but this one I'll kind of break. It breaks up that negative space. This area becomes negative space for what's in front of it. Okay, now the other thing, and I'm going to do one of my techniques and tips, because this is something that needs a more concentrated look at, and that is this brush. This is called a liner brush, and as you can see, it's got a really long, looking for my little, there it is, nope. I guess that is my round brush. Here we go. This is a regular round brush, and this is a liner brush. I don't know if you can see that, but the liner brush, the bristles are at least twice as long. This is also a watercolor brush. You can tell because it's got a shorter handle to it. I don't know if they even make a liner brush with a long handle. But the key to this is water. And you need quite a bit of it. So if you go to the video, watch that before you start using this little brush, because it is kind of tricky. It's a fun little brush, but a lot of people have some difficulties with it because they don't take the time to really get to know this brush. But you need to add water until the paint is very ink-like. And I'm just going back down in that burnt sienna and orange that I had. I added a little yellow and quite a bit of water. And I'm rolling my brush around. And I'll show you here in a second. So that when I come up, it's full. I've got paint all the way up to the metal ferrule here. And you want to hold this brush back. And you want your wrist to be real loose when you use this. And pressure is everything. So I don't want too hard a pressure. And I'm just going to take and bring it off. You know, maybe there's some branches that come off. And bend down, come in. I'm skipping so that it looks like it's going behind something. And then up here, I can just pull this off. This little brush, I think, from what I've heard, was designed for those that like to do marine painting. You know, they painted the old boats and things. And they needed something that they could use to do the masts and the rigging on it. And so sometimes you'll hear it called a rigger brush. And sometimes it's called a liner brush or script liner brush. So it's, you know, found a lot of uses over the years. But it's good for things like this. It's good for trees. It's good for grasses. And that's what the tips video will be about. So I'm just reloading. I'm going to come over here because this one has some branches that they're a little more hidden. Don't be afraid to overlap things. You know, some of these branches may bend, they break, they may diverge. Don't make them all the same length. Now, because this does have a lot of water in it, it will probably dry a lot darker, and I'll come back in and highlight that. So let this dry so I can get to the next part, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I just added a few more of these little twigs and things in here. So what I want to do now to get this thing finished up is to come in and I want to add some more leaves to these things. Now the leaves on this tree or bush, whatever this is a little more round. This is my number 2 flat sable brush. These are synthetic sables that I use. And I'm going to take my sap green and yellow, make up a nice light green. Now if you have ever worked in like the decorative type of painting, you can use those type of strokes where you just come in and you just push and lift. Do it quickly. I'm just making little strokes here. If I make too big of a blob, I just break it up by turning it into a series of little leaves. I'm just coming up and just putting some leaves here. I'll come back and throw in some of the darker ones. Now, really, at this point in time, this is where I tell my students that you finish it the way you want it finished. You know, if you find it at a spot where you like it, then leave it. You know, you don't have to do this the way I do it. I'm just showing you how I do things. You know, my job here is to just give you some guidance. I'm going to take the darker hooker's green, add just a little touch of orange to that because I don't want it real bright green. Because I'm going to come down, I've put a branch right over the top of this, and I'm just going to bring some leaves over the top of this. Add just a little blue to it too. I can always come back in and highlight. But just to, you know, break that up, put a few little leaves over the top. Picking up a little more blue to mix in with that hooker's green. Just makes them a little bit darker. Maybe these are in shade. Again, you don't have to do this. I'm going to mix up a little bit of shadow color, and that shadow color is my ultramarine blue, a little bit of alizarin crimson, and a little touch of white to make kind of a lavender color. Sometimes mixing the paint's the hardest thing you have to do. Some colors are stronger than other colors, so you think you've got a little bit of something and it turns out to be a lot more than you thought. So just to come in and put shadows from what I just put there. Follow the shape of that of the pot. Going to bring it down just a little bit lower so it looks like it goes down. But because I've put a little bit of space between the leaves that I made and the pot, it makes it look like it's standing out from the pot. Same thing over here. I can kind of suggest that these leaves come over the pot here. But I want to make sure that what I do follows the shape of the pot. Now on this side, those leaves are a little bit longer and a little bit different color. So I'm going to add a bit more orange to the hooker's green and the mud that I have on my brush, and I'm just going to come in and just drag and pull. Try to get your shapes to go in different directions. This was just orange that I picked up on my brush. Maybe these are dying. Could add a little orange and burnt sienna. Like I said, make up stories. You know, so why is it like that? Well, make up a story. Make it yours. Come back to my shadow color here. There's going to be a shadow there. But notice how I followed the shape of the pot here. All of my strokes have to kind of follow that pot. Goes in and out. That's the way I have to paint it, so that it looks like it's falling on that pot. If it were just to make it straight, that shadow would look like it was floating in air, picking up a little bit more of the orange and yeah. Because it's dark there, I'm going to have to go to a lighter color, so I'll just add some more orange. Here it's a little darker, so I can be a little darker. Learn to use that contrast. If it's a light area, you can use dark over the top of it. And I can make it even a little bit darker here. If you have a light area or a dark area, then you can put light over top of that. I still have some chalk there. Here I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow and a touch of orange because it's dark, so I'll come in and add some leaves here. I usually like to start at the fat part and then lift, because I have a little more control. It's harder to go thin and then get fat. So if you press and then lift, you have a little bit more control. Now down in here, this is just yellow on a dirty brush. Just to add some light. Now I think that at this point in time, you'll be able to finish this off on your own. Come back in, put as many leaves as you want in here. Remember, it's up to you. Don't get too carried away though, because it can start feeling really good and the next thing you know, you've overdone it. So I want to thank you for coming in and watching me paint this Writing Club pots. I hope you enjoyed it. You can always follow along by getting the reference photo and the drawing off of my blog spot, and you'll find the blog spot and other information at the end of this video. So stay safe, call your friends, call your neighbors and your family, and most of all, keep painting, and I will see you again next time. Thank you for watching.